Welcome to SplitSecond. If you want to buy the best sleeves or other magic-related accessories, head down to Dragon Shield using the affiliate link below.
This week we bring you some new commanders from the new set, the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. When there's no more creativity for new stuff, we just go back to old sets and non-magic related things, right? Universes Beyond. Today we're joined by Schuckle. Yes, that Schuckle. You can find his link in the description below. He built a spicy Ojer Axonil Deepest Might, around stacksy pieces that would slow down his opponents while he sneakily pumps his commander and spams cheap spells that burn down the table. Elder will not let a food chain commander pass by without trying it. Pantlaza Sun Favorite is packing the usual food chain and dockside combos in order to infinitely cast his commander and go through his deck until he finds an outlet to all these ETBs. Bal was quite impressed with Saheeli's The Sun's Brilliance capability to combo with just one card. He took upon Things list and adjusted some cards to his liking. Between infinite combat steps, infinite turns, infinite creatures, you name it, this deck has it all. Finally, Josh built a Tetzin Gnome Champions artifact-based deck, aiming to find Displacer Kitten and Flicker Tetzin to find more artifacts in order to assemble the last pieces needed to combo off. Schuckle is going first and he mulligan once, finding 2 mountains, a Lonely Mox Opal, but double interaction in Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast. Lava Dart can wreak havoc due to his cheap flashback cost, and Firebrand Archer is another source of at least 12 damage per non-creature spell. Elder also mulliganed once and didn't want to go lower, especially due to Collector Oof, that would easily slow the table a lot. Veil of Summer adds up for some protection, and hard-casting Pantlaza is his plan to recoup. Bal kept his first hand, and quite a strong one. Volcanic Island and Cephalic Coliseum for lands. Lotus Petal and Mana Crypt assure a strong start with Saheeli or Kelpie Guide, which is an expensive dork. Deflecting Sword for some protection and Transmute Artifact can help him find Isochron Scepter. Finally, Josh mulliganed once and found a lucky Gemstone Caverns paired with a Tundra and Flooded Strand for lands. Chrome Mox for some ramp, LED is missing Breach and Brain Freeze, but that can easily be found with the help of the One Ring. Birgi is also a good source of mana or card advantage. Before the game starts, we want to announce our upcoming special Christmas giveaway, sponsored by Dragon Shield. Some of these cool looking card sleeves can be yours. Our patrons will be able to vote on which ones will be randomly given in our special Christmas episode next month, so stay tuned. Now let's get into the match. Before the game starts, Josh announces his pregame action, putting Gemstone Caverns into play and exiling Birgi. Schuckle then starts his turn with a simple mountain and passes. Elder plays a Savannah and casts a Wild Growth on it, passing to Bal. He top decks yet another rock. He plays a Volcanic Island and casts a Mana Crypt, following it with a fresh EZ Signet. He casts his commander Saheeli, The Sun's Brilliance, only to take a Red Elemental Blast from Schuckle. Bal sadly passes. Josh starts his turn with a Chrome Mox, imprinting a Mental Misstep. He then plays a Flooded Strand and cracks it for a Plateau, and casts Tetzin Gnome Champion, entering play and triggering to mill 3 cards, and return a Sol Ring from among them to his hand, ending his turn. Schuckle also top decks nicely. He plays a mountain into a Mana Crypt, which allows him to bring out his commander Ojer Axonil Deepest Might. He still casts his Mox Opal and passes. Elder gets to his turn, plays a Misty Rainforest and slams a Collector Oof. He rejoices on his opponent's tears as he passes. Bal taps and is safe from his crypt. He plays a Cephalic Coliseum and passes. Josh plays a Tundra and attacks Elder for 2. He still casts his Sol Ring before passing. Schuckle begins by casting a Tyrant Soul Cleaver. He then casts Lava Dart targeting Collector Oof, and then flashbacks it right away, sacrificing a mountain to cast it again, targeting the Oof, unlocking the table of all the artifacts. He then equips Ojer with the Soul Cleaver and ends his turn. Still in the end step, Elder cracks his Misty Rainforest for a tapped Temple Garden and proceeds to his turn. The Veil will protect Oof from the blue decks usually, but not expecting such hate from the mono red one. He plays a Taiga and passes fully untapped. Bal taps and takes 3 from the crypt. He casts the Lotus Petal and tries to recast his commander Saheeli. However, Mox Opal is now online and Schuckle replies to it with his Spiral Blast. Bal had enough of it and responds with a delay, cracking the petal and triggering the Soul Cleaver. In response though, Josh fires an Intuition, targeting Schuckle. Had he thought of targeting Elder, he would regret it due to the Veil. He finds Brain Freeze, Underworld Breach and Savine's Reclamation. He is given the Brain Freeze and he still casts it in response with a Storm count of 5, building himself for 18. Saheeli finally hits play, but not for long, as players are now into Josh's turn, which could be crucial if he has LED in hand. We know he does, right? He starts by casting Jeska's Will, targeting Elder, who has 5 cards in hand. In response though, Bal fires a Desperate Deflecting Swat, attempting to change the target from Jeska's Will to Schuckle, who has just 2 cards in hand. Unfortunately, he can't cast any of them, and the 2 red mana from Jeska's Will is enough to allow Josh to flashback Savine's Reclamation. He does cast LED from his hand and cracks it for triple white. to flashback Saheeli's reclamation, targeting Underworld Breach. It resolves and then he copies it, returning Great Abolisher to play as well. He now demonstrates a loop where he escapes LED to crack it for blue mana, in order to brain freeze himself over and over until he has no cards in the deck and then escapes, tosses Oracle from his graveyard, and wins the game. GG. Well, this was a fast one, so he decided to shuffle up and go for another one. This time Bal won the dice roll and he's going first. He mulliganed down to 6, keeping a command tower and a barbarian ring for lands, Mox Diamond and Sol Ring for ramp, with the hopes that Mystic Remora can draw him some cards. Mystical Tutor will help him pivot his game plan and he sent Alloy Mirror to the bottom. Josh also mulliganed down to 6, finding an Aryan Mesa and Misty Rainforest for lands, Mox Diamond and Mana Crypt for ramp, with an early Archivist of Ogma to hopefully recoup some cards. Saheeli's reclamation is already at hand and he sent Bloodstained Mire to the bottom. Schuckle mulliganed once and found a turn 1 Ojer thanks to the Jewel Lotus. 2 mountains and the City of Traitors for lands will help output Weather Rune Sun earlier and hope to slow down his opponents. Mirror and Bane Splitter increases Ojer's power, so triggers like Cassic Flame Breather deal 6 damage to each opponent. Last but not least, Eller kept his first 7 with its Savannah and Temple Garden for lands, Chrome Mox and Arbor Elf for ramp, Path to Exile for some removal, while Finale of Devastation can help him fight Dogs and Extortionist or, who knows, Hoof again. Jeska's Will is always a great value card, although it might just serve as Mox fodder. Ready for round 2? Bal starts the game with a command tower and casts a Mox Diamond, discarding the drawn Spire of Industry. He then casts a Sol Ring, hoping to bait Missteps, and follows it with a Mystic Remora, passing with just 2 cards in hand. Josh plays a Misty Rainforest and casts a Mana Crypt, triggering Remora and unable to pay. He wouldn't feed the fish for no reason, so they know he has something up his sleeve. Well, does a handless Ogma has a sleeve at all? Schuckle plays a mountain and casts a Jewel Lotus, triggering Remora and not paying. He then casts his commander Ojer Axonil Deepest Might and passes. Eller plays a Savannah and casts his Arbor Elf. He also casts Chrome Mox, triggering Remora and unable to pay. He imprints Jeska's Will and passes. Remora did draw Bal 3 cards, but that Sol Ring has nothing else to do than to pay for it. He draws, plays a Barbarian Ring and tries to recast Saheeli. At least now Schuckle has no red mana available. It resolves, so he casts a Mox Ember and passes. On his end step, Josh cracks his fetch to find a Tundra and flash in a sad little Archivist of Ogma, which he was hoping that it would have drawn him 2 cards by now. He untaps and takes 3 from the crypt. He plays an Aryan Mesa and despite wanting to progress his board state, he actually passes responsibly, holding some interaction for Bal. Schuckle draws, plays a City of Traitors and casts a Weather Runestone. Remora triggers and he can't pay. At least it's a stacks piece that could help prevent some shenanigans from Elder or Josh. He still casts a Mirror and Bane Splitter, triggering Remora once again and moving towards play removal hopefully. He attacks Bal for 6 and he takes it. We're back to Elder and his Finale was just shut down. He plays an Aryan Mesa and just passes. In the end step though, Bal fires a Mystical Tutor. He finds a Fierce Guardianship to the top. Ogma triggers and Josh draws. Bal untaps and still pays for the Remora trigger. He double checks Runestone warding just before putting Isochron Scepter on the stack. The table isn't easy, but they all pass priority. Without much surprises, he imprints a not so dramatic reversal onto it. Bal then activates the Scepter, and now Josh responds by showing off his Otawara. He cracks the Mesa for Volcanic Island to pay for the channel cost, and there goes Bal's Isochron Scepter to hand. Bal did thought about Deflecting Sword instead of Fierce, but it wouldn't work against Spell Snare, which he was fearing Josh could have. The reversal resolves and then Bal still goes for it again. He casts the Isochron Scepter, which once again resolves, but now he imprints Cyclonic Rift, so he can have protection up from Ojer and who knows what else. We're back to Josh. He takes no damage from the crypt. He plays a Spire of Industry and still wants not to feed the fish, so he just casts his commander Tetzin No Champion entering play and milling 3 cards, from which he returns Mystic Force into his hand, ending his turn. Schuckle untaps, draws, taps City of Traitors for mana and plays a mountain, which makes the city sacrifice itself. With 4 mana, he now casts the One Ring, triggering Remora and unable to pay. It resolves and he activates it to draw a card. In response though, Bal flashes in Fairy Mastermind, which then triggers to draw him a card. Schuckle then swings Ojer once again at Bal, and the command damage is sticking. In the end step, Elder cracks his fetch to find a tapped Stomping Ground, triggering Archivist of Ogma and Josh draws. Elder draws, plays an untapped Temple Garden paying 2 life, and casts his commander Pantlaza Sun Favored. It resolves entering play and triggering. Isime cascades into a Perforous God of the Forge. Food chain and a Cast from Exile creature and it's game. Will he find it in time? Bal untaps and once again pays for the Remora, since he doesn't have much to do with all his mana, and it seems to be enough to slow down Josh from storming a bit. With Rift available, he just passes with 5 in hand. Josh untaps and takes another 3 to the face. He plays a Bloodstained Mire and passes fully untapped. That Remora is indeed preventing him from dumping a bunch of stuff to the table. Schuckle untaps and loses 1 to the ring. He plays a Mountain and activates the 1 ring, drawing 2, and triggering Fairy Mastermind. Ball draws and then Schuckle puts another threat on the stack, Roiling Vortex. Remora triggers and Ball draws another one. This one Ball feels forced to interact with and fires his Fierce Guardianship. Still, Schuckle keeps spell slinging and casts a Flame Jab targeting Ball. Remora triggers and Ball is quite happy to have paid 6 mana for it already. Ball was about to take 12 damage from the jab and Ojer's attack, so he activates Isochrome Scepter to create a copy of Cyclonic Rift, targeting Ojer, and hoping that Josh can have something against a possible food chain from Elder. Ball takes 1 and we're back to Elder. Does he have it? Well, he flooded quite a bit and plays a tapped Sacred Foundry. He attacks Ball for 4 and just passes, once again holding some interaction. Ball untaps and in response to Remora trigger he fires an Intuition targeting Schuckle, hoping to find a line with it. He finds a Jessica's Will, a Homerian Marshal of Rohan, and the 1 ring. They give him the ring and Ogma triggers, so Josh draws and gains 1 life. Ball lets the fish go and proceeds to draw and play a Cascading Bluffs. He then casts Grim Monolith and follows it with the 1 ring, which he activates right away before passing with 6 in hand. Josh untaps and is now safe from the crypt. Remora is out of the way, so he casts Conqueror's Flail. It resolves and he now attempts to equip it to his commander Tetzin. The table is worried, but he claims he only wants to grow Tetzin a little bit. Elder considers his interaction but passes, so Ball fires his Lightning Bolt on it, not wanting to even risk it. Josh then casts a Mox Diamond, discarding a Ganjo, and plays a Great Furnace as a land for the turn. He cracks the Bloodstained Mire for a plateau and casts Mystic Forge, taking a peek at the top card before passing. Schuckle untaps and takes 2 from the ring. He activates his ring and draws 3 cards, triggering Fairy Mastermind and Ball draws. He plays a Mounter and fires a Rending Volley. Unsure what to target, while Ball is tapped out he kills the Fairy, since it's giving several cards to Ball and he's tapped out. He passes and on the end step Elder fires an Enlightened Tutor. Uh-oh. It resolves and here comes Food Chain. Ogma triggers and Josh draws a card and gains 1 life. Elder then gets to his turn and taps, draws and puts the enchantment on the table. It resolves, but he doesn't have the Cast from Exile creature, so he's going to manually try to find it, exiling Pantlaza to Food Chain and recasting it. It enters play and triggers, so does Perforance, which actually bypasses Ball's protection from the 1 ring. Pantlaza trigger then resolves and he finds Ranger Captain of Eos. Not bad. Entering play, triggering and Perforance as well. He then searches for a Delight Halfling, and Josh Ogma's triggered as well. Elder still had a green floating, which he uses to cast Halfling. He then goes for it again, exiling Pantlaza and the Arbor Elf to be able to recast Pantlaza again. It enters play, Perforce deals 2 damage to each of his opponents, and then he cascades into an Navasin's Pilgrim, a bit unfortunate. Perforce triggers once again, and Elder tries it again, exiling Pantlaza and Ranger Captain to be able to recast Pantlaza. Another Perforce trigger, and the 1 ring. Well, for being just 1, we're seeing a lot of them. They must be fake. He activates it to draw a card, but still no squee nor anything, so it sadly passes. Ball taps and takes 1 from his ring. He actually top-decked Minamo, the best land he could find now. He activates the 1 ring, drawing 2 cards. He then casts Imperial Recruiter, which enters play and he searches for a Dockside Extortionist to his hand, triggering Ogma and Josh draws, but still no answers. Ball then casts Dockside Extortionist, entering play and creating 11 treasures. They miscounted by 1, but it doesn't make a difference. Ball then activates Saheeli, targeting Imperial Recruiter, which enters play and he searches for a Time Stream Navigator into his hand. Ogma triggers once again and Josh draws. Ball now casts Time Stream Navigator, fearing a Mindbreak trap, but Josh has been sadly flooding, so it resolves. Ball then uses Minamo to untap Saheeli, but in response Elder casts his Path to Exile, targeting Time Stream Navigator, which would be Ball's outlet. In response though, Ball flashes in a Vendilion Clique, entering play and targeting himself, hoping to draw into a counter for the Path. He did find one, but even shows it as he can't cast it and go off. Path resolves and Ball declines the search, since the only basic is in his hand, and he'd rather have the bottom card where it is. With all the table talk, Ball loses his line of thought, and players now think Saheeli is tapped from being activated, so it never becomes untapped, and Ball tries to recoup from there. He casts Charming Scoundrel, discarding a card and drawing a card, but feels forced to pass. Josh thought he wouldn't see another turn, but he does, only to take another 3 from his crypt. He then fires an Enlightened Tutor to search for an Imposter mech to the top. Weather Runestone is preventing him to go for a Sensei's top, as he has Birgi in hand as well. So he then decides to get an Imposter mech, which he casts to try to copy Ball's Dockside Extortionist, but since Ball doesn't want him to have a lot of mana available, he responds with a March of Swirling Mist, exiling Gildedrake and targeting Dockside Extortionist and Imperial Recruiter to deny Josh's mana or tutor options. This way, Josh has the mech enter as a copy of Charming Scoundrel, triggering and discarding Ragavan to draw the top card of his deck, which he knows and desperately wants. He then plays a Windswept Teeth and passes. Our guest Schuckle had an unfortunate twist of events, so he was forced to leave, but we kept his board state intact not to change the outcome of the game a lot by suddenly removing a stacks piece. Helder untaps, takes one from his ring, draws and activates the ring again to draw another card. He then exiles both his Pilgrim and Pantlaza to the food chain to help cast Pantlaza one more time, by a whopping 13 mana. In response though, Bal activates the Isochron Scepter to cast a copy of Cyclonic Rift on the food chain. Pantlaza enters, triggers Purphoros, and then exiles the top card. But it is a Jeweled Lotus, which he doesn't cast since Bal revealed the trap before. He now exiles an Eldritch Spirit Guide to help recast Food Chain as a second spell this turn, and passes. Bal untaps and takes 2 from the One Ring. He draws and then activates Saheeli to target his Dockside, creating another Dockside for a total of 13 treasures. He then activates the One Ring, drawing 3 more cards, and finding what he was about to tutor, bearing Master Wizard. Josh found a Moonsnare prototype, but it doesn't help much, so with the table f6, Bal demonstrates a loop where he bounces Dockside Extortionist with Baron by sacrificing a treasure in order to recast Dockside. Unable to do 13 treasures on each ETB, it is more than enough to go infinite. With infinite treasures, he starts bouncing Vendilion Clique and recasting it in order to draw through his old deck until he finds Intruder Alarm. With Intruder Alarm, he now creates a copy of Dockside Extortionist with Saheeli, which upon entering triggers Intruder Alarm to untap all creatures. This allows him to make infinite copies of Dockside Extortionist with Saheeli and attack his opponents for lethal. GG. Thank you for joining us for today's match everyone. A bit clunky games, but we hope you enjoyed watching the potential of these different commanders. Mono Red showed a lot of stack interaction. Food Chain was used not to go off. 3 Rings drew a lot of cards, but in the end the Remora might have been the MVP, allowing Bal to stay in the game from a turn 1 down to 2 cards. We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons, and especially Izanagi, TJ Rapp, Ajimo, Drunken House Cat, Pina, Ricardo, Katarina and Zinan, our stack breakers. If you want to support us, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing or by becoming a patron yourself. If you want to go through other Commander adventures, click one of the videos on the right. If you want to talk with us about our games or other EDH related matters, join us on Discord. Join us again next week for a new set of Commanders and more decisive plays. See you all then.